Hello, I am Ron Baker. Welcome to Empowered at Last. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, individuality. What do I mean by individuality? Someone who knows who they are, knows how they feel, knows what their priorities are, knows what they stand for, knows the qualities that are important to them, such as compassion, generosity, perseverance, courage, and someone who stands for the things that matter to them. So, if I were talking about myself, I would say that I want to be a real individual who is aware of self, aware of my principles and values, and that I want to make choices that stand in my personal truth. That does not mean that individuality equals I don't listen to others, don't consider others, don't hold a space to hear from other individuals what matters to them, what they stand for. You see, the only way we're going to feel confident and solid to hold a space for another person, particularly if that person doesn't happen to align and agree with some of the things that matter to me, the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I truly know the value of standing in my own individual truth, principles, and values. Now, why in the world don't we do that naturally? Why in the world do we see a world, I'm going to say world a bunch it seems, why in the world are we seeing so many examples where people don't stand as individuals? All we have to do is look at our government. We have in the United States become such an oppositional us against them kind of approach as a government. It doesn't really seem that people are standing for things that truly matter to them so much of the time. True individuals. It was so amazing recently when we've seen certain individuals standing up and saying, this is what I stand for. I'm willing to not just go with the herd, the group. I'm willing to say, I don't happen to agree with where this is headed, and I'm going to be an individual. It takes real courage. When you see this demonstrated, doesn't it touch you and make you want to be more of an individual? Well, so often we are seeing herd consciousness, oppositional consciousness running the show. Let's pause for a minute before we go further and look it back. Why is this? Where does it come from? In many ways, this is how we become conditioned as children. If we were in a truly healthy scenario, we would first be nurtured in 9 distinct ways. We would be offered an environment that encouraged us to feel safe, connected, with affection, encouragement, acknowledgement, compassion. These are some of the nurturing needs that we needed to receive. And when we did, what it would do is plant an initial impression that we matter as individuals. When mommy and daddy offer all of this nurturing value in my direction, my nervous system starts to have seeds planted that give me a solid impression and a foundation for trusting my value. Being connected in that family system is a version of herd consciousness. It is a version of feeling safe in the group. Well, that's not where our needs and our development are supposed to stop. We also need to then be encouraged when we get to 4, 5, 6, 7 years old into the beginning of, tell me how you feel. Tell me what you're going through. Tell me what's important to you. I know I'm proud of who you are, who you're becoming, what you're choosing. What are you proud of? Are you proud of yourself? You see, all of these encouragements would have established a sense of individuation, a sense of getting in touch with self. This is the core of a soul journey. This is the core of creating a life that is going to be fulfilling to you as an individual. When your individuality is encouraged in a big way, tell me how you feel, tell me what you perceive, tell me what you prefer. What would you like to do today? These foundational questions need to be modeled for us when we're little, and then encouraged from us as we create relationships even in childhood. This is a part of sharing. This is a part of both people in a relationship being important. We needed to learn that from mommy and daddy. I happened to grow up in a family where it didn't even occur to me that my opinion mattered or my preferences mattered. It just was show up and go with what was decided by the big people, the apparently important people. Now, they were not trying to do anything bad to me. They were not trying to squash me necessarily, though there are plenty of families where that might be the case. It simply was not encouraged for me to trust my inner self, to invest in and get to know me, how I feel, what I want, what I prefer. And so I did not grow up with this gorgeous balance. And so what that leaves us with is a doubt that we matter as individuals. In some families, where there's a lot more depth of wounding that is acted out, individuals are squashed. My worst version was something like, don't contradict me when I would have my own opinion about something, which said, your opinion is less than mine. There are other people who experience much more direct invalidation. I remember one time being in a men's room at a restaurant, and I walked in on a father who was completely berating the little boy. Just totally invalidating him, telling him he was stupid, telling him to shut up because his voice didn't matter. There was much more detail, but that's the gist of it. And it broke my heart. Well, I've now worked with thousands of clients around the world over the last 25 years, and I know how little championing of individuality goes on typically. And so eventually, now would be good, eventually we need to wake up and go, wait a minute. If I don't claim myself and get to know myself as an individual, then I'm still going to be stuck trying to get somebody outside myself to validate me, to accept me, to include me, to tell me that I matter. We all want to know that we are cared for and that we matter and that others want to spend time with us, but it can't be the end goal, nor can it be a healthy replacement for trusting your own value and individuality. So what I encourage you to do is to evaluate how you grew up. Evaluate how often the relationships that you've been investing in actually spend time asking about the other person, holding a space for the other person. How many times do you go out where it is mutual support, mutual interest? How often does it feel safe to disagree when a preference that you have is unique to a preference of the person you're with? Only when we have the experience of sacred individuality, where we understand how important it was to me that mommy, daddy, or that others in my adult life have encouraged a safe space for me to be an individual, how much it matters to us, how much it touches us. Only then are we likely to hold a space that is equally as sacred for someone else. So do an evaluation. If you find, like most of my clients, that there hasn't even been an awareness that there's an imbalance, there hasn't even been an awareness that no one's ever encouraged this, well, there needs to be a developing awareness. I remember when I was in college, for whatever reason, I was really negotiating what it meant to be an individual, and I was discovering myself away from home for the very first time. And I would hear my friends express an opinion. Rather than agree or disagree, I found myself asking tons of them, "That is really interesting. Why do you believe that? Tell me what moves you to have embraced that particular perspective." Some words like that. I was perhaps not so surprisingly baffled that most of the people I asked realized they had no idea why they were claiming that particular perspective. It's merely what they heard their mom and dad claiming as they grew up. Well, perhaps this is a natural stage of evaluating and growing that occurs around the time of college. However, it seems to me we don't live in a world that really encourages it. So I am encouraging it as one source that says who you are inside, even if you're not that conscious and connected and aware today, who you are on the inside is profound. And when you get in touch with more and more of the things that are going on in here, from your feelings to your needs, to your preferences, to your true interests, when you get in touch with those things, you will set yourself up for a much more fulfilling life. You will set yourself up to become a proactive part of the world that you want to create. So dang important. Rather than, let's go to politics again. Well, I'm a Republican because my family is Republican. I'm a Democrat because my family's Democrat. Or there are those who say, I oppose the system totally because my family typically opposes the system. Well, it might be a lovely place to start, but I think it's really important that we grow up and learn to hold a space and awareness of why I might be moved to be one party or another, why I'm moved to be one religion or another, why I'm moved. We could make an endless list of options and arenas. Why I so often have asked people who are of the opposite party that I happen to be affiliated with, please help me understand what moves you about being a part of that approach. What moves you about the leaders that are in your group? What moves you to align in this way? Almost never, sad to say, have I gotten a clear answer that says, well, I am a big-time individual, and yet I'm more aligned with this group for these distinct reasons. This is what moves me. This is what inspires me. Well, it is not remotely random that I chose this subject at this time. We are about to move into election time here in the United States. But even if you're not in the United States, apply it to yourself. Do the evaluations so that you become more prepared to stand for something, not to oppose out of fear. Fear of losing, fear of being dominated, whatever your fear might be. Evaluate. Who am I going to vote for? Why? What will serve? What will help the good of the whole? What aligns with my principles and values most fully? What do I see is a need in the world? What systems do I hope will remain in place or become real priorities? Some subjects that have been on the table recently: women's rights, such as abortion; climate, and making sure that we protect Mother Earth; gay marriage, and the equality of people being able to love who they love, with an equal support of the system that is in place to be a government, not a comment on morality or what I agree with or my particular approach. Get in touch with whatever moves you. Who do you want to be? Who do you choose to be? Imagine the epitaph on your tombstone at the end of your life. Whether you have a tombstone or not is not the point. Imagine your epitaph. What do you want it to read about you? Stuck with the herd, was always afraid, or was a true individual who stood for things that mattered and also held a space for others to be individuals? That happens to be what I truly want to stand for as an individual. I encourage it, I celebrate it, and I hope that you, no matter what you discover is important to you, I hope that you will become a proactive part of letting your individual voice be heard. Go and vote. Even if we live in a system that's a little wacky these days, and there are a lot of questions about tampering, etc., it is still so important that we practice showing up and letting our voice be heard. Showing up and standing for things as an individual. Until we evolve out of, I don't really trust my value and so I need the herd to reassure me, and actually become a world of individuals who stand for the good of the whole, the entire whole, which is made up of individuals. Until we evolve to that, we are going to end up more and more divided. It is so dang important that we learn how to set ourselves up well, that we stop counting on others who clearly are not doing the greatest job at standing in individuality yet. Some are. Others need the encouragement, just like I'm encouraging you and me to remember this important subject. Individuality. You matter. Your individual life matters. But in order to know that as your reality, you must claim it and nurture it and honor it and practice it, and then hold a space for others to do the same. That's today's lesson. I thank you for listening, and I close as always with choose well, live fully, and by all means, be good to you.